Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Author Spotlight. And without any further ado, I'm going to be introducing you to a lovely lady I've recently met called Lorraine Senior. And we're going to discover the highs, the lows, and the things that she's learned as part of the process of becoming a published author. I was very lucky to be at her book launch just must be last week now, I feel like ages ago. And I have to say, I've been to a number of book launches and this one was pretty special. So I will be picking her brains to find out how she made that happen. So without any further ado, let's welcome Lorraine to the show. Welcome, Lorraine.
Good afternoon, Sheryl. Thank you for the invite.
And I was supposed to put this lovely little ticker tape at the bottom just so people know what I said. So those who like to be able to see it as well as hear it. So I'm just going to put that there because I've forgotten. But we have you, and your book is called Reflexology for Schools, Nurturing Learning and Embracing Diverse Needs by Lorraine Senior. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what your book is about.
Great, thank you. So a little bit about me. Well, now I'm a reflexologist, but in my former life, I spent 20 plus years as a teacher in both mainstream, but mainly in special education environment. And I had always a love for reflexology or for complementary therapies really throughout my life. And issues with my own health issues in my early 40s took me out of the classroom to learn more about reflexology. And then as I learned about the nurturing touch of reflexology and the power and the many benefits that brings, I really felt that I could use those new skills to support young people in the classroom, young people that I had witnessed having difficulties during the day and coping with school life and managing emotions. So two main career paths really that have come together to look at how I could create something that's right, particularly for the school environment. This is where my passion is, really.
Yeah. So what is the book actually about? I mean, it kind of says what it does on the tin, which we always hope books will, Reflexology for Schools. But tell us a little bit about the book and who's it for and what's the purpose of the book?
Okay. So really what I wanted to do was I wanted to support the qualified reflexology therapist, looking at how they could develop with their confidence and with a professional package to get reflexologists into schools to do what I've been doing for the last 12 years. So the book shows the many benefits of what I've been doing, but also introduces the reader through inviting them into the therapy room with some of the young people to get the feedback from the young people. Why do they like this? How has it helped them? And also the staff at school to say, is there a difference? What's the benefit of that young person going for the therapy? Why have it during the school day? For me, you can have reflexology anywhere at any time, but if the professional reflexologist is going to take their business into schools need to know what are the benefits for that young person and for the school and for the parents. So what I've looked at doing is creating a professional package, which is where the secondary title, functional reflex therapy, it's a framework that supports the reflexologist, documentation, what's involved in their work as part of the multidisciplinary team, what are their expectations and what are the expectations of the school when they buy in their services. So the book really highlights the benefits of reflexology and why I'm doing it, but also shares information about really, I hope, to inspire reflexologists.
I definitely
to
got
learn
that from
about it. Ultimately it's about coming to learn about the framework and how it can help them to develop their business.
Yeah, I definitely got that from just listening to you talk at the launch. And it's definitely about giving them some understanding of the expectations of the educational institutions, if that's the right word, because they've got to be able to prove, haven't they, what they're spending their money on and why it's going. So it sounds like there's lots of tools in there to support reflexologists to have more confidence in that environment and actually how to present themselves well when going through those things. And why a book? Why did you write this book?
Why? Great question. I think because I was receiving lots of questions, lots of emails coming through over the years, and I found that I was really sharing the same information. And then I developed a course for reflexologists which shares that information. But in order to raise awareness, if you like, that this package is available, I felt I needed to bring something together, bring information together to say, look what's been happening in school for the last 12 years, and this could be you. So although I feel, it's great that it's my work in there, but I do ask reflexologists to put their name in place of mine, because it could be them that is doing this work in school. So for me, I needed to show them what's happening, but also to say this is possible, and I can help you to go and knock on those doors, if you like, with a professional package.
Yeah, and also your past experience of working in schools, that's an added bonus, isn't it? Because you've already got that experience.
Yeah, I think that really helped me to think about what's important for the school, because the reflexology is amazing, but how could I focus it to make it acceptable and to give it like a recognition really within the school system. So that's important.
Yeah, I think that's the best, definitely what I took from the conversations I was hearing that makes this different from other books that I've heard about. So what's been the most important thing that you've learned as your whether you call it a journey or the process of going from thinking about writing a book to now being published? What's been the most important thing that you've learned?
One was that I could allow myself time, that it was valuable work, because I felt guilty almost about not being out with clients or not being, and I had to it was difficult. It took me a long time, I think, to allow myself the time. So that was important. It was very difficult to be selective. So I've learned to be selective, because I wanted to put everything in the book that I could possibly put in. And so I've learned that about myself, but I still do go off on a tangent, and I think I probably have gone off on the tangent a little bit in the book, but and I think I found myself towards the end, interestingly, what have I learned most about the process? I've had a couple of reflexologists that are writing books, and they said, well, we're doing books on school work or children with additional and complex needs. And the more confident I got with what I was putting down, the more I felt like saying to them, well, this is great. Not, oh no, but I'm writing a book. I wanted to say, what you put in your book will be different to what I'm putting in my book. So I felt that my confidence had grown a lot. But only in the latter stages. It's taken me a long time to get there.
I think it's true for anybody that's watching the video. It is a process, and I think when you'll talk about, first of all, feeling guilty about having the time, so you've learned that it was a valuable use of your time. Then be able to be selective, so letting, not including everybody. If you're a very inclusive person, then obviously not having everything in there is difficult. But as you go through that process, I think it forces you to distill your wisdom and to really become familiar with it. And that is where the confidence comes from, when you can go through your own experience, journey, knowledge, and actually go, this is what I'm presenting. And it's lovely to hear, because I'm kind of inferring from that, instead of feeling threatened or in competition with other people writing similar books, actually there's now more people going to get more information out there, which is part of your vision anyway, isn't it? You want more people working in schools.
Yes,
So
yeah. I mean, ultimately, I would love every reflexologist to be supporting their work with the framework that I've created. But the important thing is to get reflexologists into the education system. So if the information that I've shared allows them to develop a professional package, then that's a good start, because we can't get to everybody all at once, but we just, hopefully this will just raise the awareness that it is possible.
Yeah, well, you had we had like 2 screens full of people at your online book launch, so, and they were all over the world, weren't they? So it was just like,
They
it was
were
one of those amazing things to see that your book is like tentacles, is my metaphor, not yours, have got sort of spread out already just through the process of actually getting it published. So what do you wish you'd known before you started?
Maybe if I'd taken a little bit more time to learn about what I needed to do. I think I'm going to write a book, right, get started, and I spent 6 months thinking about a title and then writing an introduction, and in fact probably 2 years actually thinking about that, and it wasn't really until I came across Karen and got the information of where to start, and sharing the start with the end in mind. You don't need a title, it will come. You don't need your introduction, just think about what information you want to get out there. So maybe my book would have been 2 years it would be 2 years down the line now, had I worked on that information, if I'd had that information earlier. So I certainly would research it more. But then also I threw it to one side for a while I couldn't get a structure. I didn't know what to do with all this information. So the structure arrived probably with lots of thought. How can I create something that's unique in order to share the information and not just talk about what I'm doing, which is where the stories from the therapy room come in. And I deliberated quite a long time to ask parents if I could use real life stories, and with the young people that I support who have quite a lot of difficulties, quite a lot of challenges, it was really nice to get the feedback from them and their parents, how proud they were that there was information that together we could share and help other people. So it has become for me that's the highlight of the book, to say, look, we're all worthy of receiving reflexology, and we all struggle just with anxiety and stresses of coping throughout the school day. But this therapy, with the framework to support those that may have difficulties with communication as well, has helped them.
Definitely. So that kind of moves us on to the highest one. We'll come back to that in a minute. So we did say that this might happen, and that's absolutely perfect. But so just going back to what you wish you'd learn, and just to clarify is that you wish you'd known what you had to do, and actually rather than sitting there for 6 months to 2 years trying to work out the title and the introduction, had you known that you had to focus on the end in mind, what do you want the people to get out of the book? And I think also you mentioned in the book launch about who was it for? Was it for the reflexologists or for the students or the schools, etc.? So that clarity of the purpose, who it's for, what's the outcomes you want your reader to, was the big learning for you.
Yes.
And a question I forgot to ask you, you said you felt guilty about the time, but because you felt it should be with your clients. What was the thing that changed that? So you stopped, I'm assuming you eventually stopped feeling guilty. What was it that changed it for you?
I think it was having a structure, and probably that's what took me a long time to get onto, and recognizing that people write in very different ways. So I know the group, so going through the the program with Karen and the other to be authors, everybody was coming from different angles. It was quite interesting to hear how some people were able to just block out 2 hours and sit down and something would happen. Whereas I would find, strangely, I might wake up at strange hours and think, yes, I know what I need to do, but I actually had to get up and do a bit of it. I couldn't do that big block of lots of hours. I had to keep going back to it. But once I'd got the structure, and once I felt a bit more confident, I keep thinking it's maybe a bit like an artist, you know, when they're doing a bit of work and you think, well, I would think, oh, that's finished, and they would look at it and think, no, it's not. I need to do more. I kept thinking, well, that's a good idea, but it needs more. It needs more.
I think it's such an important part. I think really what I'm getting from listening to you is that I think the creative process of writing, we've all got our own unique way of doing it, our own way of making decisions about what to put in and what not to. And it sounds like there's also allowing yourself, if you have to wake up at 12 o'clock in the morning with an idea. I am definitely that kind of person, which is why I definitely worked better with Karen on the retreats, because then I didn't have to do a day's work. I could sleep in the afternoon if I needed to. But I'm definitely that kind of writer. It's almost like my subconscious mind comes to mind. It wakes up about 3 a.m. with a wonderful idea. So I'm hearing that it's really about when you started to accept your own way of writing, and that when you got the structure, you could start to have more confidence in what you were writing, which then meant you weren't feeling guilty. So I guess the lessons for the people listening is that you're not necessarily going to feel guilt-free at the beginning. You might have to keep going, because you don't know, do you, if the book's ever going to happen. I think that it takes a huge amount of courage at the beginning to keep going when you haven't got the clarity yet. But as it starts to form, I'm hearing that that's when the confidence comes, and then actually blocking time out to write doesn't feel so, I think my words, not yours, wasteful.
Yes, I think so, and also the way that maybe you write, because I have to write. I'm not great on the keyboard, so I don't enjoy looking at the screen. So I'm writing, and I'm constantly writing, and then there'll be pages and pages of written words still, and then everybody does it so differently. But I think that's maybe a longer process. If you could channel the energy to do it on the keyboard, I think that might have saved me quite a bit of time.
I can say from the time we work with clients, but I spend quite a lot of time with Karen's clients finding out what it is what's happened when they're writing at their best. And I do think it's a combination of handwritten and typing. And everyone's got to find them. There are some people who can just type it and it's all organized and it comes out logically. And then there's others, as your book says, embracing our diverse needs, where our thoughts may be a bit more sort of sporadic, and we have to grab them and then condense them into the written form, or use technology, even things like, these things we could read it out and get it typed for us. So I think it's great that you sound like you've accepted your process, your way of writing, because that takes the pressure off, definitely.
And I think initially, I'm just thinking now, when I first started to think about the book, I was actually reading an old cookery book from my mother-in-law. It's got like 5 shillings on the front of it, and as I was looking through it, it was written out in a storyboard format. And I just thought, that narrative really is what I do during the school day, and how I go and collect the children, and what protocols and routine we put in place, and how it supports them, and how we finish. So that little idea that I drew out, a little idea with stickmen, and then contacted a young lady, you met her online, Catherine, who's done the illustrations in the book, who somehow got into my mind to create this story. So part of it, there's a couple of pages in the book where it takes you through this story of what happens at the beginning, and what happens in the therapy room, what happens at the end, and that really started me off with
Yeah.
thinking this is the process, and so that process I can show with a few of just a very small selection of the young people that I've supported, but the process is slightly different.
Yeah, it's a great example though. I know Karen's done it before, and the retreats is when we've been in the UK anyway. We take our suitcases, we take different books along, and actually encourage people to look at other books, because if you haven't got the way, if you're not visually able to imagine it in your head, which some people just can, then actually having physical copies and going through books and saying, well, I like this bit about this, I don't like this bit, you eventually can build your model, can't you, of how you want to do things. And so who'd have thought a recipe book would lead to a book about
such an old one.
reflexology?
I mean, yes. And actually I don't think that's a good point, so I don't think I did that enough following on from that, even down to what sort of font I might have wanted. You don't think about it becoming a book in the end, but I struggled with that side of it. So if I had started that process, if I could have got into that mindset a bit earlier, I think that might have helped.
I'm sure there's going to be a second book, so you'll have plenty of opportunity. So with another question then, what was your lowest point on this, through this process of becoming an author?
Probably at first thinking, well, I struggled with that structure, and I struggled with, in my mind, trying to create something that was unique, because there are hundreds of reflexology books on the market, great books out and about, but mine's not really about the reflexology, it's about the framework and process around it. So I felt that I was constantly sort of questioning. I found that quite hard. What do I need to tell people? How am I going to tell people? And what will they think about it? So I did struggle. I did struggle with that.
So what helped you when that's what you were struggling with?
Probably the mentor so I think Karen's group and the one-to-one sessions really, when I probably struggled to get my words out, talking as we are now, with quivering lips, sort of like I can't do it, and she would find the right questions to ask me. So I think that did really help. And the group sessions, I was surprised. I think I mentioned to Karen recently, I was surprised that the group sessions would be so helpful, because normally, although I'm chatting quite well now, in a group I'm usually quite happy to sit back and listen. So I didn't know if it would be helpful for me. But it was, because other people were having the same problems. And they were able to voice their problems at a time when I wasn't. I was just feeling, that my confidence was very low, and that should I really be doing it? So that was really helpful.
I think it's a really important message, and I'd really like to get that across, because I think we forget, if we're not very, either introverted or extroverted, I don't think we're taught at school or even life really, that sometimes we need to hear something externally that resonates with our own inner wisdom, because we can't find the words if we're asked the question directly. But if we hear somebody else answering the very same question, you hear that version, and it's the combination of all those versions that you kind of, with unconsciously, you're formulating your own insights and understanding. And if you just sit there in isolation, even asking the same question of yourself, you can't get that wisdom. And I think so many people struggle, particularly with book writing. I think they see it as a sort of a job they have to do, without realizing that actually the power of groups are that you get that feeling of, gosh, it's not just me. That's always a bit of a relief, isn't it? But there's also that, it's a creative process. And so we often need that external stimuli and that understanding to access our own inner wisdom. So that's really lovely to hear that. So I think I might know the answer to this, but I could be jumping to the gun. But what has been your biggest success to date?
Well, one, that I've done it. And two, well, the book launch has to be, quite a quite high up, really. And not just the online book launch. So I looked at it as though the people that I was most proud about, those young people that are in the book, because reflexologists and head teachers have a lot to learn from those therapy sessions. So when I was able to present everybody that was in the book with their own copy and have this assembly, just to see their sort of, wow, look at this moment. The online was amazing, absolutely amazing, because it brought so many people together. But I still, but sort of the joyous bit really is just seeing, look at me in a book, and knowing that all the way along the line I have said this is going to be helpful for other people, and that's really important for me. So. But the online book launch, well, the support was quite amazing, really. So
was it 90 odd people were on live, weren't we?
Yeah, so I think so. Yeah, I'm just working my way through a few people now, just to say thank you very much. People gave their time. An hour of your time is a long time to give, and at different times of the day and night. The only thing we had, the only issue was there were too many for me to say hello to, and then you really, people you've maybe not seen but just been in contact with on different platforms, different groups over the last couple of years came together. We needed more time.
Yeah, definitely. And talking about more time, we're going to wrap up shortly, but I did say at the very beginning I'd probably ask you about that book launch. So obviously the assembly and seeing the joy in the children to sort of represent it, because I think you also framed the pictures of the illustrations for them as well, didn't you? So they had that as a memorable thing. So you had that joyful moment, and we've got 90 odd people all over the world on your online book launch. What is it that worked to get 90 people to be on this journey with you with this book, and then being there, wanting to give up their time in all different time zones?
Well, I think over the last, I would say what helped was feeling very passionate about what I've been doing. And maybe over the last 6 to 8 years of making contacts within the reflexology world and sharing what I felt passionate about. And so lots of people have seen it develop.
So they've been with you on the journey.
Yeah, so I think so, and because I've been very focused and specific about schools, there isn't, and there are reflexologists working in schools that are not following my framework, and they're all doing great work. But I wanted to put something together that brought a consistency to it that could be recognised more easily. And I think because I've stayed true to that passion, that's what people have found interesting and found
they've been attracted. And it's a great thing to do, because I think you're talking about your framework and you've talked about that passionately, and then you've written about it. But too many people, I think, when they're writing a book, because of that lack of confidence, that kind of concern that it's ever going to become real, they forget to bring the tribe, the group, the community with them. And that is what makes the launch so much easier. And it also means you get that momentum at the very beginning. So I'm just so grateful that I got to meet you and I got to come to it and be part of it. It's an inspiration, certainly for me, when I have to do book. So I'm just going to pop the link at the bottom. And just to remind everybody, it's Lorraine, and the book is called Reflexology for Schools, Nurturing Learning and Embracing Diverse Needs. It's by Lorraine Senior. So thank you so much for your time today, Lorraine. If you're interested in the book, please contact Lorraine direct, or you can get it from Amazon as well.
Thank you very much, Sheryl.
You're very welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Okay.
So that brings us to the end of another episode of the Author's Spotlight. If you are a budding author and you're struggling, and maybe some of the things that Lorraine talked about today, you're thinking, oh yeah, I've been there, and you'd value the support of a mentor, then please do check out Librotas.com, which is the person who sponsors this show, which is Karen Williams, and she will let you know about the different ways you can work with her in order to make your book writing dream a reality. Thank you for joining me this week.